The NFL owners meetings is underway in Florida. We had some GMs and head coaches speak on Sunday. A lot more coming up today. We also had a big extension in Buffalo. NFL Spotlight starts now. Welcome in. It is the Monday, March 31 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. Another week, here we go, and it is a big week in the NFL. The owners' meetings is officially underway in Florida, the Breakers Hotel down there in Palm Beach. Owners, GMs, head coaches, a lot of meetings going on, and there's going to be a lot of updates flowing in throughout the course of today. Of course, follow at My Sports Update on Twitter for up-to-the-minute coverage on all of that. And, of course, we will talk about all of it here on NFL Spotlight as well. But let's talk about some of the things that happened over the weekend, including a little bit that already started trickling in from the owner meetings on Sunday. Let me bring in my good friend, Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on? How are you?
I am doing lovely, Ari. Let's go ahead and talk about what's going on out in Buffalo. They locked up cornerback Christian Benford to a 4-year, $76 million extension. That adds him to a list of guys that include Josh Allen, Khalil Shakir, Terrell Bernard, and Greg Russo that have gotten extensions done there in Buffalo. One player notably yet to be extended is James Cook, who has publicly expressed that he wants to be among the top paid running backs in all of the NFL. Brandon Beane said they have started those conversations, but don't really seem to be actually close. So what do you make of the Bills' approach to locking up some of the young cornerstone players, and I guess some that they haven't?
This was a multi-year plan over here by Buffalo. If you remember last offseason, they moved on from so many veterans from Jordan Poyer and Mitch Morse and Stefon Diggs and Gabe Davis and Micah Hyde and on and on. And the idea of it was we are going to move on from that era of the Buffalo Bills where we won a bunch of division titles, playoffs, kept on falling short, but they knew that they had this new era of young guys who are coming up, and it was their time to shine. And a bunch of those guys this past year really showed up to a point where all of them had 1 year left on their contract, and they've all been getting extended. And we spoke a little bit about this early on when they extended Khalil Shakir, who was the first of these extensions that happened early this offseason. But the Buffalo Bills have been very proactive in getting these deals done and really getting, I would say, team-friendly deals on players who play big roles on a team that is really, really good down there in Buffalo. You look at Christian Benford, who is one of the more underrated corners in the NFL. They missed him badly in that game versus the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game where he got injured early on, and Sean McDermott even mentioned after the game how much losing him hurt. But 4 years, $76 million over the weekend. That's $19 million per year. That puts him tied for 13th among cornerbacks in the NFL. And now you have him for 4 years plus the last year of his rookie deal for 5 more years. That deal is only going to get better and better. And really, they did that with all their players. Gregory Rousseau, the pass rusher, 4 years, $80 million. That put him as the 11th highest pass rusher. Terrell Bernard, the linebacker, got 4 years and $50 million, $12.5 million per year. That puts him at tied for 11th when it comes to linebackers. And we mentioned Khalil Shakir before. 4 years, $53 million, $13.25 million per year. He is way down there when it comes to overall receivers. So they've been getting to get these deals done and really get some really good contracts over here for the team side as well. And Brandon Beane, who spoke to reporters on Sunday from Florida, he mentioned that after the season was over, when we had those end of season conversations with these players, we asked them, how much do you want to stay in Buffalo? What do you think about your contract situation? And a lot of these players said, we want to stay here. We would love to get a deal done. And we know that we're a year away from free agency, but the preference for us would be to stay in Buffalo. And because of that, they've been able to get these type of contracts done. All of those extensions are 4-year deals, which means They have all those players down for the next 5 years on really, really good player-friendly, team-friendly deals over here. And again, the players are getting paid. All of these guys, besides for Rousseau, were picked outside of round one, so they have not been making much money in the first place in their careers. But these contracts are only going to get better and better for Buffalo. As for the one player who has not gotten a deal done yet, that is James Cook, and he has been, he's tweeted from his account he wants $15 million per year. Brandon Beane, spoke about this as well. They had early negotiations, and quickly he realized that the agent and the player were way too high, and they just pivoted to Benford and Shakir and Bernard and Rousseau, and those were much easier to navigate. And the reality here is, and I'm going to say this, I don't think any other person would, but the agent that he has is somebody who has gone through this road before. I mean, they've been trying to get a number that is just too much. And this agent had the same problem with, J.K. Dobbins, who in Baltimore wanted an extension before his last injury, and they couldn't get a deal done because the price was too high. J.K. Dobbins, coming off a great year right now, is still a free agent because he's asking for too much money. And it all really falls back to the same agent over here. So this has been the norm for this agent, and that's kind of where it is right now in Buffalo. And it sounds, unless they're willing to come down on that number, that Buffalo is just not going to engage right now, and they're going to be willing to let him play out the final year of his contract. The bigger question becomes, is James Cook even going to report? Because if you remember J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore in that final year, he was a hold in during training camp. This same agent had Dalvin Cook as well, James' brother in Minnesota, before he got his big deal. He also was in a situation where they were playing some games over there. So this entire situation with James Cook, we're not surprised if we've not heard the end of it over here, even if he does not get a contract extension. So definitely one to watch in Buffalo as the weeks and months get closer to eventually, mini camp, OTAs, and of course, a training camp eventually as well.
Well, this time of year, some teams are stressing over who's going to be under center next year. Well, apparently the Pittsburgh Steelers are not one of them. They have now come out and said, according to head coach Mike Tomlin, that there's no deadline as to when they want Aaron Rodgers to decide whether he wants to join the team or not. Ask Cam Hayward his thoughts. He doesn't quite have the same mindset. It seems like at this stage of the game, barring a push from the Vikings, it really does seem like the decision is whether Aaron Rodgers wants to A, play with the Pittsburgh Steelers, or B, just retire from the NFL. They can say there isn't a deadline, but how long can the organization really wait before they hit that point of we're being held hostage? And what do they do if ultimately he decides I don't want to play?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've spoken about this a little bit over the last couple of weeks where the Steelers have been willing to stay patient here. And I said this last week or 2 weeks ago when we spoke about Rodgers. It's not a money thing. The parameters of a contract are in place with the Steelers and Rodgers' agent, David Dunn. They know what the number is going to be. They know all of that. The question has been, what does Rodgers want to do? And Mike Tomlin spoke on Sunday. He's speaking again here later today as well. He spoke only exclusively to Pittsburgh local reporters on Sunday. I'll speak to everybody else on Sunday. But he essentially said that we met with Aaron Rodgers. That first meeting a couple of Fridays ago was more of a get to know you. It was very productive. Really, nothing new came out of this media session. Like the fact that Pittsburgh is willing to wait, the fact that it was a productive meeting, the fact that Pittsburgh is interested, the fact that there is a mutual respect between both parties. We knew all of that. The question really becomes, like you said, Ben, is how long are they willing to wait? And there's been this feeling around the NFL, especially with the Giants signing Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and Minnesota at least making it clear as of right now that they are okay with the quarterback position, that the only option for Aaron is Pittsburgh. So there's a chance this happens sooner than later, but at some point it's like, when is this going to happen? And I think I would imagine that the pressure point for all of this would be before the draft. And I don't think it's going to extend that long. I really do think we're going to get a decision before that. But again, Aaron lives in his own world and his own mind, and it's very different than most other situations. So I think it would be irresponsible to try to guess exactly when this would happen. But people around the NFL have believed for a while that Pittsburgh is the most logical choice. And clearly, Mike Tomlin, like I said last week, has been the one person who has been pushing the most for this. So he didn't say anything out of the ordinary when he spoke to reporters on Sunday. He said all the right things. Again, he's going to speak again later today, but this is more of the Steelers waiting for him to say, you know what, I'm accepting your offer. I'm going to join this veteran roster, a team that is always making the playoffs, a team that is always having winning seasons. And it's going to be my job over here in my age 41 season, my 21st season in the NFL, to get this team to not just make the playoffs, but to win playoff games. So again, my guess and my assumption is this will happen sooner than later. But until it happens, we're going to continue to talk about it. And I know our listeners and people on Twitter are just, they have Aaron Rodgers fatigue already, but this is the way it is going. But like I said, the belief remains that he'll end up in Pittsburgh. But until it happens, it has not officially happened. We have to talk about it.
Well, let's talk about the guy that they could have had in their building still because he was there last year. And if they had actually decided, you know what, we want to commit to this guy, you can stay here. And that's Justin Fields. He goes out there, he signs with the team that Aaron Rodgers was just on, the New York Jets. And it sounds like he's going to be their starting quarterback, which you would hope, considering they actually gave him some real money. Now, their general manager, first time GM, Darren Muge, says that Justin Fields is the starter, but veteran Tyrod Taylor is right on his heels. Are the Jets looking to provide Fields a little bit of extra motivation, or is Tyrod really going to be an option to be the week one starter?
I mean, listen, they paid him a 2-year, $40 million deal, 30 million of which is guaranteed. So obviously he has the upper hand of getting the starting job, and it really is his job. I mean, if you watch the press conference with Darren Muji, which happened on Sunday, he outright said a couple of times that he is the starter, but it was more of a throw in there to mention that we have a lot of respect for Tyrod and he's somebody who is going to be there. But I don't expect this to be a competition. The only thing that I would say about this situation is I do think Justin Fields is going to be the guy this year, and they believe in him, and they love the fact that he has a prior history with a number of guys on this team, from Garrett Wilson to the new offensive lineman who they signed in Josh Myers and Jeremy Rucker, the tight end. All of them were together in Ohio State. They love that element of it. And they also love the fact that there's been this trend in the NFL in recent years of, Sam Darnold reviving his career, former first-round pick, and Baker Mayfield reviving his career, former first-round pick, and Geno Smith reviving his career, former second-round pick, that Justin, who was picked in the first round a few years ago, maybe he could revive his career with the New York Jets right now. But this is the only other thing I would say about it. Prior to Russell Wilson signing with the Giants, Justin Fields was the quote-unquote cheapest starting quarterback in the NFL at $20 million per year. That never really took the Jets out of a situation of potentially drafting a quarterback at number 7 should a quarterback fall to them. Let's just say Shedeur Sanders slides, or they really like Jackson Dart. That element of it is still alive over here, I would say. I would be surprised if they do it, but the contract does not take them out of the quarterback market, which I think is notable to mention as well. We've seen teams sign, I think like one of the more notable ones was Kirk Cousins last year when he signed with the Falcons, and that was way more than $20 million per year. They still drafted Michael Penix. I remember when Chicago signed Mike Glennon, and they were like, he's our starting quarterback, and a few months later, they draft Mitch Trubisky. So this idea that the Jets are for sure out of the quarterback market is not a slam dunk yet. Again, I would be stunned and shocked if they actually go in that direction, but people were stunned last year when the Falcons won in the quarterback direction. So I would not shut the door on that all the way just yet. But I do imagine the Jets are going to go with a different position. But I do think it's worth mentioning that that idea or that possibility is also still out there. But should they pass on a quarterback in the first round and the second round and whatever, I would imagine that Justin Fields will be the QB1 for the New York Jets in 2025.
All right. Well, speaking of that NFL draft, and get this is going to be a repeat line that you've heard here and everywhere ESPN. All of the first round picks in the upcoming draft are still with their original teams. And it appears that the Cleveland Browns are going to keep that trend going, as their GM Andrew Berry said they are unlikely to pursue the first overall pick in the draft. They currently have the second pick in the draft. So not a whole lot to move up from, but hey, that makes a difference, because if you want Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, you're probably going to have that first overall pick. So any posturing here, or is he being honest?
I mean, this is the thing. They've had a private workout with Cam Ward people around the NFL would hands down tell you that the QB1 in this draft on most boards and for most scouts is Cam Ward. And of course, the Browns kind of need a quarterback. As of right now, they have, Kenny Pickett there, and it's like, who else is going to be here with them? So obviously, they still need to figure that part out. And the belief for a while has been that if the Browns were able to get Cam Ward, they probably would take Cam Ward. So I'm not going to say, okay, this is for sure not happening, but the belief has been, like we've said for the last couple of weeks, the strong indication around the NFL from opposing teams, basically reading the actions of the Tennessee Titans, is that they are likely going to stick at number one and draft Cam Ward. Is there a chance that Tennessee gets a phone call and a team offers them 3 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, and it's like, you know what, we have to do this? Yeah, that possibility is out there. But if that offer does not come, the belief has been that Tennessee is going to go out there and use that pick on Cam Ward, which in part is why I do believe the Giants went out there and signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, because they can no longer trade up to number one. And the Browns, I think Andrew Berry's saying they're unlikely to trade up to number one. I think that's also them realizing that the chances of getting up to one is probably unlikely unless the asking price drops significantly, which obviously to this point has not happened. So as we sit over here under 4 weeks from the NFL draft, what I believe and what I've believed for the last couple of weeks, and we've said it here on the show, is that Tennessee is going to stick in number one and take Cam Ward, which puts the Browns on the clock at number 2. So I'm not surprised Andrew Berry said that, and I would expect them to stay at number 2. The bigger question now becomes, of course, what do they do at number 2? And there's been this growing buzz out there, and there's been a lot of reports coming out that maybe they're not necessarily big on Shador and they'll take Abdul Carter or maybe Travis Hunter. So I still don't have clarity on that. I'm not going to say I've heard the same thing, but we have under 4 weeks to go. And it does feel like the Browns are more on the clock right now than the Tennessee Titans. But again, we'll see what happens over here in the coming weeks if anybody gives that Godfather offer. But to this point, it has not happened.
All right, and let's go full circle with the Buffalo Bills, because one of the guys that they let go in order to be able to sign all these young guys was Stefon Diggs. And he went out last year. He got traded to the Houston Texans, played 1 year there, tore his ACL, hits the free agent market this year, and he goes out and he signs with the New England Patriots to be their number 1 receiver. And we saw this massive deal come in, 3 years, $69 million, $26 million guaranteed. And it has now been since revealed that those numbers, they have been a little bit of agent talk. And it seems like the actual numbers are a little bit closer to 63.5 million with just 16.6 guaranteed. Is this just a lesson of being able to hear what comes from the agents and not maybe always buying into everything that's being said initially?
Exactly that, Ben. I remember when that news happened, it was the same night as when Russell Wilson signed with the Giants. I did not believe those numbers. 3 years, 69 at that stage of free agency, coming off that injury. It just made no sense. And I remember we said it here on the show. I told you, Ben, I was like, when I get my hands on those real numbers, because I see every single contract once it's officially processed to the NFL, we will talk about it here on NFL Spotlight. And I got those numbers on Sunday. I put it out, and those numbers are not necessarily what was initially reported. Like you said, 3 years and $69 million. This contract, essentially, Ben, is a year-to-year contract. And the Patriots, if they want to, they could get out of it after just 1 year. And the simple breakdown, I don't want to bore people over here, but the simple breakdown over here is that in year one this year, he essentially has $15.1 million that is going to be in his pocket no matter what. If he's active every single game this year, he would make another $200,000 per game. That is another $3.4 million in total that he could make this year. After this year is over, the only money that the Patriots owe him is a grand total of $1.7 million fully guaranteed. They could cut him after the season is over, and voila, the contract is essentially off the books as long as he's healthy and could pass a physical. If he's not healthy and cannot pass a physical, they would owe him another $6 million. So in total, $7.7 million is in total guarantees for 2026 should he not be able to pass a physical. But this contract essentially is a year-to-year contract. If the Patriots loved what they saw in 2025, they could keep this going in 2026. If they love what they saw in 2026, they could keep it going in 2027 for over $20 million per year for both of those years. There's also incentives on that contract for yards, for receptions, for Pro Bowls. But the simple fact over here is that when we heard 3 years and $69 million, and we thought that he got more money than what Chris Godwin got in Tampa Bay, who signed for 3 years and $66 million, it sounded outrageous and something felt fishy. And of course, something was fishy here. So these contracts, it's not like baseball, it's not like basketball, it's not all fully guaranteed. And this is another example. This contract is more similar to essentially what Cooper Kupp signed in Seattle. So that's kind of where we are. But New England finally got their number one receiver after trying for so long to find somebody from Brendan Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Chris Godwin and T. Higgins and Calvin Ridley. They finally land on somebody like Stefon Diggs, but make no mistake about it, it's not 3 years and $69 million. It is essentially a 1 year deal worth a little under $20 million, and we will see from there. So that is the real contract here in New England. And like we said last week, I don't think they're done in the receiver market. And I could see them definitely drafting somebody or signing another guy over here in the near future.
Well, and we'll be discussing a little bit more of what draft plans are going to be tomorrow on NFL Spotlight when we have a very special guest coming on. We'll let you guys find out later in the day today who that is going to be, but we're going to be covering a lot of the biggest draft topics, including some of those wide receivers in the draft, whether it is a guy like Teteroa McMillan or maybe a Travis Hunter playing there as well. We'll go through all that kind of stuff. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel, the audio, Spotify, Prime, Prime. Goodness, I am tired. This was where I say Apple, not Prime. I've got my whole list of things that I try to go through. Prime's not one of them. We're not on there, but hey, maybe one day.
One day.
Yeah, that's all you need. All right, I'm getting off screen before I say any other sponsors that we don't have.
Yep. So that will do it here for our Monday, March 31 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. Like Ben just teased, tomorrow we're going to have a bit of a draft preview episode with a very special guest. Not necessarily a spotlight interview tomorrow, but we will announce who that guest is here on the episode and also on my X page. And we will have a lot more coverage of what happened over in Florida at the NFL owners meetings. All the AFC head coaches will be having press conferences tomorrow there in Florida. The GMs will also speak. The NFC head coaches come up on Tuesday. So a lot of coverage from Florida, the Breakers Hotel, also coming here on NFL Spotlight and at My Sports Update on X. We will see you all here tomorrow morning.